Hey, what's going on? It's Johnny King with the Johnny King Show, and I have the esteemed and noble guest, I don't know what that means really, Mr. Dan Houck. Houck.
Yeah.
Which originates from...
It's a German background.
German. I love Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah. Like strudel. So. And sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut, right?
Taste for that.
Oh, man. Dan's my good buddy from Denver here. We met through my men's meetings. We have had lots of really good conversations over the last year. More recently, just a couple days ago.
Yeah.
We did 3 laps around the park for about 2 hours, and we probably could have kept on talking, but my feet were tired.
Yes, me too. I have a little black and blue spot from... I've never done 3 laps. I've done 2,
know,
but I've never done 3.
See?
So that was great.
We're setting a new bar.
Yeah.
We're setting it high. So Dan and I always have had, like I said, great conversation. But he's in a cool chapter of his life.
Yes, very exciting.
And there's so much we can talk about. We can talk about appropriate and inappropriate things.
We got all the covered, yes. We've done it all for sure.
We can swear, we can keep this PG, we can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
This is my show.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. Give the listeners a little bit more just background on who you are and your, not only professionally, but just your upbringing and just who is Dan.
Yeah. So I was originally from Arizona, grew up in a really small town in northeastern Arizona. Went to college in a U flight staff, and then I lived in Phoenix for about 17 years. Originally my career was in broadcasting, behind the scenes, engineering, technical stuff. And did that for about 20 years, lived in Phoenix for 17, and then moved out to Denver, because I'd always had kind of that inside calling thing. All those years in Phoenix with that dear blessed desert heat in the summertime, that little voice kept saying, it's awfully hot.
Yeah.
I mean, Denver seems like a really nice place. So finally, there was some career, the work environment changed, a relationship, I had a personal relationship also changed, and that gut said, remember me, it's time, man, it's time to make the move. So I've been here in Denver about 5 years now. New job came right away. It was great. I quit my job in Phoenix, moved out here without the job. But within 3 months, that showed up, Channel 9 here in Denver. And have been doing that for the last 3-4 years. And now the latest leap is to the world of personal development and coaching myself. I decided I really had interest in that. I really enjoyed working with people, having conversations like you mentioned. And so I want to do that professionally and help people also discover what their inner guidance is about, what's their inner calling. Like I said, I had that voice in there for so long, just whispering. Yeah. And to be able to trust that, I think, is very empowering. And I think a lot of people were trained so much to be in the head and trained to, well, I'll speak for myself. I was trained not to trust that. I was raised Catholic and was taught you can't trust yourself. You have to follow God, you have to follow the Bible, the priest, whatever. And like I said, I experienced this other inside thing and said, I think I can trust that. And then experimented with that time after time with little things. And the most recent one was leaving Phoenix to come here. And every time I've listened to that voice, that inner guidance, that's brought me great things that I never could have imagined. So that's what I want to help work with others, find their own empowerment, their own personal guidance. Because I think so many of us are lost too. I know I was, even after moving here, I was still searching for, what is my purpose? So I know I want to live here. Like, I definitely found fulfillment in living in Colorado, but there was still, again, something to saying, I'm not just lit up though.
Right.
I don't love what I do every single day. I'm good at it, but there's something more. So again, listened and followed and got the guidance to say, it's time to do what you really want to do and work with people one-on-one and help them also, guide them, ask the questions. I love that about the coaching is it's just asking questions, my curiosity, and each client already has the answers. That's really cool. Each one, they'll have those, I never thought of that moment. And that's magical, because then they're like, of course, why didn't I think of that? And then I just encourage and support. Or I think a lot of people resonate with that support too. You know, someone to talk to. I find that so many times is so helpful. People often say, wow, just saying this out loud, or just having someone willing to listen, being willing to listen to me, I did find the answer, or I did find, oh, that does feel right to me, or no, that doesn't feel right at all.
Because when do we ever really sit down, at least by ourselves, and like ask those pertinent questions?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen a whole lot.
And it does seem to be something about speaking it out loud. Because even in my own experience, when I work with my coaches, my therapists, whatever, when I'm talking and saying it out loud, all of a sudden I'll have even a physical sensation that says, oh, that is true. Oh, that's not true. Oh, whereas when I'm thinking of it in my head, it's just thinking, it's processing. I don't have that same sense of, oh, that's it. So I find that speaking it is very valuable.
When you're talking about the little voice, the calling, where do you think that comes from?
For me, that's a spirit, that's the universe, that's a higher guidance. I hesitate somewhat to use the word God, because I know for me that wasn't the best relationship, again, with that religious upbringing. Even nature, I could even call it that. I find that I'm most connected and receive the most inspiration, literally, when I'm up in the mountains and hiking, or just smelling the forest oftentimes can be like, oh, that's my next step. That's what it is. So for me, it's a divine, higher knowing, higher spirit that I believe is the universe, or some type of higher power that is offering suggestions, offering some type of guidance, some frequency. That's actually the name. That's why I named my practice, my coaching business, Find Your Frequency. Partly because of my radio TV background, that I've always been interested in the RF stuff. Radio waves always fascinate me because they're invisible, but they're always there. So I love that analogy. We can't see it, but if you put an antenna up, you can get radio, you can get pictures. There's so many things to tune into. And if you tune into someone else's channel, or the wrong TV, or the music, you're listening to something or watching something. This is not for me at all. I don't want anything to do with this. But we're so outside oriented often. I'm often looking what someone else is doing and looking to somebody else. That I can be distracted. I can say, oh, maybe I should do that. Oh, I should go this way. I should go that way, because it's working for them, so it must work for me too. And sometimes there's some parallels. But my experience is there really is an individual frequency for each one of us, an individual guide, path maybe, that if I follow that, that's never led me anywhere but good. Sometimes it's uncomfortable along the way.
Often.
But on the other side, on the other side, there's something when I look back, I say, oh, that's exactly where I was supposed to go, or what I was supposed to do. So
it's almost like that small voice does often push us. It's calling us out of our comfort zone. So
for
there
sure.
usually is some discomfort there. For sure.
It's always pulling me or pushing to grow. I like the analogy more of pulling, because sometimes, I remember I heard a minister once say, you can either be pushed by the pain, or you can be pulled by a vision, or pulled by something. And I'd rather go with the pulled than... There's not that there's not pain, but it's just somehow it's a different energy to be
for sure
following it.
And I've heard Tony Robbins talk about the difference between push and pull motivation. And push is like you're feeling like you're being pushed in the back,
right?
Like you're being pushed into the gym even though you don't want to be there. You're being pushed to be healthier and you don't want to, or like there's a part of us that when you're getting pushed, you push back. Right.
There's more resistance, or
pull is compelling into like, oh my gosh, and doors open and you're like, I don't know, I just got pulled into this. This is in a good way. Somehow
there's more free will associated, or more empowerment, right? If I feel like I'm being pushed, then it's not my will or not my power. Versus if I'm consciously taking steps, that feels more empowering to me inside, and I grow better from those experiences. They're just more appropriate for me. So.
Interesting. Again, I mean, you moved here 5 years ago. I moved here 6 years ago. You were listening to that voice. I was listening to that voice. Like I think there's certainly those people out there like you and I who have been however long, kind of like pushing that voice down, like, no, I don't
Sure.
want to listen to you. It's no wonder I wish the voice were louder.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it is though.
Sometimes it
I mean,
does
if you
get
don't,
loud.
if I don't listen enough,
It
but
gets louder and louder and louder.
but you're right. In the beginning,
Yeah, you
it's
gotta
a whisper.
wonder, it's like, why don't you speak up? You know, why don't you encourage me sooner? You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes I think that's maybe the underlying test, if you will, or it's like you have to trust.
Yeah.
Even if it's a small, quiet, when everything else is loud around you.
Yeah.
And trying to get your attention, if you actually listen.
Because there is something. Yeah, that's actually how I start to discern and tell the difference between the thinking mind and that small voice. Is that internal guidance or smaller voice is more of a gentle presence. It's never a, why don't you do this? You know, why don't you get over there? And you should have done. Why didn't you do it that way? It's not that type of a demanding. So I think what you're saying about the softness of it or the gentleness of it is a very important clue for me to also decide, oh, this is kind of mean. I don't think this is my true guidance. Whereas that inner guidance is more of a, what about this? Like, what do you think? Like, this feels right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend, and I was telling her some thoughts that I had and feelings, and she said, well, how do you know that you have that feeling? How do you know that that's, it's like, and I kind of sat for a while. I was like, it's just this like gentle knowing.
Yeah.
It's just like it's hard to put my finger on it, but it's just like, it's in my heart. Like, I just know that's how I feel.
Yeah. And sometimes for me too, it's one of those out of the blue kind of things, or it's just an instant idea that is similar to a thought. So, but the difference is I wasn't consciously trying to create it. I wasn't trying to solve a problem. I wasn't analyzing anything. Like I say, it's often in the forest or in nature for me, or meditation maybe, where it's just boom, this new idea, this new time. I had that happen actually on the timeline to move here to Denver. My partner and I had decided to sell the house. It was like 5 weeks until it closed, and I still was, do I stay in Phoenix? Is it moving? Like, I felt peace, but I also didn't have a clear plan. And one morning, as I was sitting in meditation, this whole plan just downloaded into me to say, you're going to fly to Denver, you're going to look for a place, you're going to sell your house, or you're going to move out on this day, going to quit your job on this day. Like, it just was this whole amazing timeline, literally, for about 3-week period. That was really cool. And again, and that's exactly how it played out. And like I said, that wasn't in my mind at all. That wasn't me trying to figure anything out.
Yeah.
So
I think this is so relevant because I feel like so many people, again, like you mentioned at the very beginning, are lost. I mean, we've talked individually, and sometimes I'm like, damn, I'm so lost.
Struggling.
And you're like, Johnny, I'm so lost. Well, that is life, right?
It is.
Especially in the life of entrepreneurship or love, or especially with COVID right now, like just tomorrow, we don't even know what's around the corner. So it takes a lot of courage in listening and being guided.
Yeah.
But then,
trusting
into that, right? And it's kind of super scary.
It is.
Right?
Absolutely.
But like, how do you move forward otherwise?
Yeah.
It's like you can't just hold on to yesterday.
Yeah.
Hoping to move forward.
Because so many times it is asking us or asking me to move into that unknown. So that's where that trust, like, but I don't know about this, but something feels right about it. And yeah, it's definitely, there's those times where I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this path? Like I don't see any more ahead of me. But there's always one more little pebble, there's one more little rock that I could step on. But yeah, sometimes it can be very overwhelming and scary for sure.
Sometimes the 3-week plan, sometimes you only know
the next 3 hour.
You have a little tiny lighter and that's all you can see out in front of you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we've chatted for a while, obviously, as you've been considering, like, I don't know if I should, what's the right time to move out of this job and move into coaching, but I feel in my heart, like we've talked through the phases of, this transition, and then there was the initial like elation after being, I'm free, and then there's like, oh shit,
what the hell?
So what do you feel like has been through this journey of like stepping into owning your own business and starting your own coaching practice? What do you feel like has been some of the bigger lessons or some of the bigger ahas that you've had, if any?
Yeah, it's still a work in process in that. But I will say what keeps coming up again and again for me is trusting the process, or just keep going. I keep getting that message, or I keep getting that inspiration. Just keep going. And then the self-compassion, the learning to be gentle to myself when the fears come up and when the anxieties, or sometimes even the anger, like then I feel mad. Why did I do this? Why don't I know where I'm going? Or why do I feel so scared? Like I got angry at that. And so that's the lesson I'm learning now is how to just acknowledge that's there and somehow still have compassion for it. I haven't gotten to the point of loving it yet. I hear that's another step, but I have gotten to the point where there's at least compassion, because there's an understanding of why those fears are there. Yeah. I'm learning that. I'm understanding as I'm looking back growing up. Again, it was a very small town. I was frightened of people. I'm gay, and so growing up in the small religious town didn't feel like it was safe. It didn't feel like other people. First of all, I felt alone and then unsafe. So that internal dialogue got very mean, got very harsh. Nobody likes you, stay away, to protect myself. Now I can see that as an adult. It was, because it wasn't really safe. It wasn't a very safe environment for me as a gay boy at that time. So yeah, there was a lot of self-criticism growing up. So to recognize that as an adult, to see that the self-critical voices are still there, but at least start to understand and say, oh, you're not just an asshole voice that's beating me up. You are serving a purpose, and you are actually trying to help me. Right. It just feels like an attack. Right. But so that's been a huge, that's been a big help. And also recognizing that those voices are not that spirit guided, like I was talking earlier. That's not my true divine inspiration. That's the survival techniques or mechanisms or coping. But they kept me alive too. So, right, I've gotten to that point too, where there's a sense of gratitude to say, wow, this is actually pretty awesome. Look at little me, little boy, could start to read people. That's how I started to tune into picking up on people's energies, or picking up on if they were safe or not.
Picking up on their frequency.
On their frequency, yeah. I could start to read. And so, yeah, like any gift, I believe, has its shadow side, and the gift is there. So if I'm too sensitive and too hyper vigilant about what other people think, or even meeting new people, then I don't meet anybody new. Right. But in the coaching business, in the coaching practice, it's awesome, because I do connect with that client and they feel seen or heard. And I pick up on little things and say, what happened just there? I think I heard you say this. And they'll say, yeah, I didn't really want to talk about, but again, it's that empathy, or that tuning in. Yeah, you're right. Tuning in to their frequency is a great gift. Is definitely helping me now. So it's really turning that same curiosity and compassion toward myself. Is the big lesson, and taking the time that it needs. Like we were talking earlier as well, that there are some days where like I don't want to do anything, and there's that critical voice. But you should. I mean, you got all this to do, and you got that, and what about this? And but again, it's my discernment process of that's kind of a mean voice. What is this saying? Yeah, it's saying I just want to rest right now. Yeah. So I'll just take a little rest day. Yeah,
it's interesting because I see a lot of different parallels. Obviously, you're having your unique experience, and yet things that you say throughout this, since knowing you and your experience, I'm like, it just triggers like, oh my God, I went through the same thing. I thought the same thing. And I remember I would waste weeks doing nothing productive, weeks. And I think about like, it's been 10 years, literally since this past April, 10 years since I left my job. And now, for the most part, like today, for instance, this is the third podcast I'm recording. Just to be so, like, I'm just cranking out work. And you could look at me and be like, oh my gosh, you're putting out. Yeah. But dude, for 5 of the last 10 years, granted, I've figured out some way to scratch and claw myself, through progress. But man, for many of those, especially those first couple of years coming off of my divorce and stuff like that, I was so broken and raw. Man, was it a struggle. And I think it's nice, I think, and why I think you're you are such an amazing coach, which is like, a lot of times we look at people who have accomplished so much, you know, and there's part of us that maybe sees a little bit of us or even aspire to be them.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes there's such a gap, you know, just like, I don't know how I could ever. It's nice when there's people that are maybe just ahead of us a little bit, people that you could serve, you know, who you're helping just because you're, you know, a couple miles ahead of them. Right. And it's nice to be able to relate, like, you get it, because doesn't mean that you're perfect. You can still be working your own process, which we honestly all are.
Yeah, for sure.
But to say, hey, I've been through that, you're good, just keep moving along as you keep talking to people that are maybe beyond you, and you just keep working. We all level each other up.
Yeah, encourage to the next step, or reassure. I will say, even a couple times when I reached out to you, say, oh, Johnny, this is a hard day. Like, holy cow. You would say, oh yeah, I've been there. Yep, I remember that day. And just that simple phrase, nothing else, nothing to fix, nothing to say, do this. Just to have someone else acknowledge that they'd had a similar experience or a similar path, a similar down that road, was very, very helpful. Because then I realized, oh, thank God, I'm not totally alone, or I'm not off on some totally blind trail, or maybe off track even. And my coach also that I work with, she too has also been, like you said, a few miles down the road ahead of me. And I have the analogy of just a trail. Like, I imagine I do a lot of hiking, and so the analogy that came to mind when she was working with me was, oh yeah, you're just, oh, did you see that big rock over there? Yeah, and watch out for the tree branch, because I feel, but yeah, I remember that spot back there, and oh yeah, just take a big step right there, and then you'll be on the other side. And there's something about that that's so reassuring. So, okay, well, this is the right path, even though it's new to me, but it's not a brand new path. So
new to you, but there's a path. You can see that a lot of people have walked it, you know.
And they have good things to say, and say it is okay.
Yes, they're still alive.
Okay. Yes, they are, and they're happy. Like, also, they are doing what they love, which is also what I'm walking toward, and finding more and more every day that this is what I want to do. And that came to me too after leaving the job. There were those days where feeling scared, like, where does the money come from? What's my schedule like now today? But reflecting back on the previous job was still like, no, that's not what I want to do. This is what I want to do. This is the job. Is this my own personal work at that time to get to where I can help and give it to others then. So that is what I like to do. That is what inspires me and lights me up. And that's what I want to feel, is that excitement and aliveness, you know, that comes from following our own frequency.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's so courageous with what you've done, because in some regards, you were comfortable, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but this is my experience of what you were comfortable in your work. You were good at it.
Yeah.
It didn't give you a whole lot of fulfillment per se, or maybe up to a certain amount.
Yeah.
You just knew that you were called for something much more, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you left your job, you actually created a lot more resistance, and like you can't avoid it now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you could kind of ignore the little voice, the calling, because you're like, because I'm getting a good paycheck. You can rationalize yourself out of it.
Sure.
But now there's no fucking avoiding it.
Yeah.
You got to wake up every single day, and some days are going to be better than others.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
But now would you say that you feel more alive?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? You feel more alive even though you're feeling a lot more of the roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah. It is the dynamic roller coaster.
Like a little more flatlined before.
Right. Now the lows are lower and they're tougher, but then the highs and the fulfillment is also amplified. Yeah. So that too is it's learning to feel the feelings. It's learning to be with all of that dynamic range, if you will. Yeah. Or amplitude of the frequencies of the feelings. Does take some practice too. That takes some and willingness, right? Sure. It's got to be a willingness to say, this is what I choose, to be able to then, I'm consciously going to experience this, and I'm okay to experience this.
I think willingness, I think of it still as just courage. Like, it just takes a lot of courage to get your ass out of bed, right? And to keep facing it. day after day after day, when it's just like, this is painful. It'd be so much easier. Like I've said to you, I've said to so many people, I can't tell you how many times over the last 10 years I've had like a filled out application for something sitting in the car seat next to me as I'm driving, and I keep like looking down at it, like, am I going to go turn this on and kind of go back to the corporate America?
Right.
Or am I just going to keep soldiering on? So many times I was one decision away from giving up.
So what was the final deciding for you then? Why did you decide not to do it?
I think it was just that I still use so much of what I got out of my marriage as driving force, which was, yes, the pain of going through a divorce was the most pain I've ever experienced in my life, right? Especially for someone who's codependent and enmeshed as I was and insecure as I was 10 years ago. Yeah. However, with or without her, I still was deeply unhappy with who I was as a man. So I knew that seeking certainty just wasn't my route for growth. Like certainty would be to sit at home, never lift a weight, eat whatever I want because it's comfortable. I was doing all those things in my life with the exception of health, but I was doing it with, the income was comfortable, the house was comfortable, the work was decent enough. I was traveling, which gave me a little bit of a variety. It was a little bit of a challenge. Everything was just like okay enough. Yeah. But to think about going back to that, to being that man, to me sounds like death. I would rather go bankrupt or fail at a business or, just keep failing forward, as I've said in past episodes, in terms of just waking up every single day and struggling with that, than to go back and live a vanilla life. For me personally. Yeah, because there's still more fulfillment, there's still more aliveness. I don't want to get to the end of my life feeling like I didn't put up enough shots. Yeah. I didn't really go for it. Yeah. And I get that. I think about just, meeting my maker, not exactly, but like you can use that metaphor of like meeting your maker and being like, sorry, I knew I had a lot more, you gave me a lot more potential, but I didn't really tap into it because I was scared, Yeah. And him or her are saying, but I had you the whole time, and I'm like, well, now I know. Had you told me? He's like, no, I was telling you the whole time. I think that is the small voice. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. Just go. And the more you do that, now you did it when you moved here, you've done it now again. I'm sure you've done it multiple times through it, but the more you do it, the more it actually doesn't get any less scary, just the more you trust it. That's going to be okay. Yes. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, I also often will tell people, again, how I know that it's that small voice and not my mind trying to figure something out, is that I've never regretted or felt a sense of, oh, I shouldn't have done that, when I listen to that voice. Again, there's not to say that it's all roses and poppies along the way. There's struggles, and it's still a sense that this was the right choice, or even if it doesn't turn out how I imagined it, when I look back on it, I say, oh, well, but this happened and this happened and that happened, and that I'm grateful for. Whereas decisions that I'll make from my mind or from a more fearful place, I'll look back on and say, oh, yeah, that was fair. That was because this is not what I want. This is not. So, yeah, it's nice to have the lack of regret of following that voice too. There's not the second guessing, I'm not beating myself up then, because it's still fulfilling to me. It still feels right to me, even in those darkest times. Like I remember after that first couple months of living here in Denver without the job yet, and it was winter and didn't know but maybe 4 people, that was lonely, right? There were some days in that apartment where I'm like, oh my gosh,
same.
This is really hard. But I also remember that the thoughts were never, what have I done? Maybe I should go back. Oh no, it was that this is really hard. Yeah. That was it. But yeah, again, it just wasn't that sense of regret or questioning, what have I done? Yes. It's a sense of this is really tough right now. Yes. Yep. Yes. And you just have to go through this. I just have to go through this.
I feel like, again, I went through very similar things in my studio apartment when I first moved here too. And I feel like the thing that kept me going too is like that I felt alive.
Yeah.
Where before I was just like
Yeah.
numb,
Yeah.
flatlined, emotionally flatlined
Yeah.
to life in some respects. So at least
Mm.
being pain or feeling pain or being alone or whatever, it's like
Still.
it's if anything, that's just pushing you forward.
Yeah.
Well, then I remember I had like a couple weekends in a row where I was in my studio apartment that's no bigger than this living room. You know, it's like what 250 square feet,
Wow.
smallest little tiny studio apartment, and I was there Friday, Saturday night. I was a 35, 36-year-old single male in a new city, and every weekend I was just staying home working. I'm like, what am I doing? So, but that pain and that loneliness was encouraging. Was without it, then I would be comfortable. I think you have to realize there's a message to every negative or painful emotion that we feel.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of heed that call and that if you're frustrated or lonely, well then what are those things? Well, then I need to go connect. I need to go make some new friends, or I need to try a different approach if I'm frustrated because that's clearly not working. Or there's always those messages and those negative emotions.
Or maybe I just need to be with this emotion. Like even that has been a
shut
big
it down,
right. Not, and sometimes it's still too intense. Sometimes there are times where I need the distraction from it, but there is something about being with that discomfort and that I think is also makes us stronger. Gives us growth potential, finds that power that we didn't know we even had, that I really can sit with this, or I really can feel this frightened or this scared, angry even, and still come out the other side. Like it didn't kill me. We hear that phrase, I was scared to death, to realize, oh, well, I wasn't scared to death. I was scared, scared like hell, scared out of my mind sometimes. But there wasn't the death there. And then that leads to I made it. Yeah. Oh, look, it's okay. Yeah. But that doesn't come until a week or two or a year later.
Sure.
In the middle of it, man, it is tough in the middle of it. There's some days where I'm like, wow, is this really, is this supposed to be this intense? Yeah. So, I do have a compassion for anybody who's in that place too. Because in the moment too, I don't want to hear anybody else telling me that it's okay, or I don't want to hear anybody else telling me that it's going to get better and don't worry about it. I want someone that can say, oh yeah, man, that is hell right now. Yep, I feel that. Just tell me. I've nothing to fix right now. There's nothing to even a positive prediction. I don't want to hear at that time, because the negative self-talk, saying that's never going to happen. And someone's pushing against it or offering another possibility. At that time, ain't gonna help me.
Right. So for you, it seems like it's valuable. I'm sure. I mean, for you, for me, for a lot of people, valuable. First and foremost, just to be seen. Yeah. Not to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Just to be seen. Oh yeah. Validated.
Yeah.
Empathized with.
And empathize. Yeah. If someone else can say, "Oh man, I can relate to that feeling. I don't know exactly the same situation that you're in, and I'm not trying to pretend that, but I know when I've been really sad or mad or scared or even joyful, happy. That's fun too. Talking with somebody who's in that happy place, I can share that empathy as well. So, but you're right. It's just about being with me. Sometimes I don't even want to be touched. Sometimes I just want someone in the room. While I process these emotions, while I feel the emotions, that connection, that company is huge.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's interesting. When we were walking the other day, we were talking about a book that I've read that you've done workshops for called Radical Honesty, that I thought was interesting. But I think, again, that the underlying, not surprising that we've kind of both we've done that type of work, is because I feel like, at least from my perspective, connecting with you, is that there's just always been a level of just transparency and vulnerability and honesty in talking to you. I don't feel like you're putting on a mask or trying to put on a front that I got all my shit together when, if you're scared, you're like, Johnny, I'm freaking out.
It's a hard day.
Just like me the other day, my friend started talking to me. He's like, you've said in the past that you feel scared. And I was like, yep. And it made me laugh because he wasn't even done telling me what I was scared of. I just was already agreeing with him that I was scared. because I was like, I'm pretty much scared
Mm-hmm.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
Scared to grow my business, scared to fall in love, scared to, take risks to make more money. Like just everything, there's a level of fear that I'm scared of. And it's just funny because I feel like, and he turned around and started laughing because we were hiking. He's like, dude, you don't even know what I was going to say. I was like, well, I already know I'm scared, so I agree with you. And he's like, that's what I love about you, Johnny. You're not trying to put on like you got all your shit together, It's like, no, I'm really scared.
I'll tell you what I'm really feeling. And
yeah.
And I'm looking for people that are willing to do the same. Like that's where that connection comes in.
Yeah.
Those are my most special relationships.
Yeah.
And even the coaching practice too. I've had clients say, wow, I've never told anybody else this, or wow, I actually feel safe enough to talk to you. That's where the gold is for me, because that's where those answers really are. That's where I find those answers are in those scary, scary places. So to be with someone else, whether it's a friend or a client or anybody in those intimate places, if you will, it's cool. It's very cool to share that.
Well, I think that again, just the honesty, vulnerability, transparency, however you want to say it, is there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
But you've done these radical honesty workshops, a couple of them.
Yeah, a couple week-long ones. Yeah, two.
Just to revisit some of the things that we talked about over the weekend, like what were some of the bigger takeaways from that work as well? Because you've done that, you've done Mankind Project, which I've also done. I'm sure you've done other things that I haven't done, but we definitely have some of those things in common. But for radical honesty work, what were some of the things that really impacted you? You feel like that moved you along? And I ask, just before you answer, because if you're listening or watching, it's like when people say to do the work, it doesn't look like anything specific other than you just deciding that where you're at needs to shift, and so you're willing to just listen to that guidance. And if someone says, hey, you should read this book, and then you hear someone else say you should read the same book, and then like another person read the same book, then pick up the freaking book, or go to the workshop, or pick up a podcast, or hire a coach. Right? So you obviously heeded the call with this, but I was wondering why it called out to you. What about it? Because the radical honesty.
Yeah, it was something about the authenticity of it. Like, could they be radically authentic and honest? Which again resonated for me because of, for so long, for being in the closet till being 23 years old, for not coming out. I knew how oppressive or how constricting it felt to have this secret. And yuck, I don't like that anymore. Right. And not to say that it's comfortable to should be truthful and honest all the time. Sometimes that's ultimately very scary. But what I experienced in those retreats and those workshops were that if I was willing to go into that discomfort of telling the truth and feeling that tension or feeling the shaking in my body even, and do it anyway, then I could get to the other side of those feelings and recognize, first of all, usually it wasn't what I thought was going to happen didn't happen. And second of all, someone else then would share with me. And then again, there's that connection. There's a deeper trust or just a deeper connection with another human being at a more honest level, at a more real level. Also, like we were talking on the walk, how do you know if you can trust somebody's yes? Well, it's because they tell you no. They tell you the good and the bad, when I'm angry with you and when I'm really happy with you. But if I never hear that somebody's mad at me and they're just always going along with me, or they're always saying yes to whatever I say, there's a part of me that's suspicious to say, something doesn't quite feel authentic or real here. Totally. So that was a big step of those workshops, was saying, I'm mad at you about this, or I'm pissed off right now. And not meaning that you have to change anything. It's just an expression for me to say, I'm really pissed that you said this or you did that. And express it, and then say, all right, you're still doing it? Yeah, oh, you're still gonna do it. But okay, but at least I'm not having this built up frustration. So that was interesting because had been afraid, honestly, that if I even express I don't like this, that then that person's going to change or feel like they have to, and then they're going to feel manipulated or something like that. And that's not the intention, as I understand it, of that radical honesty. It's more just to say, this is me, this is my truth. I like this, I don't like this. And then I want to hear the same from you. I want to hear what you are excited about and what are you mad about me at, to build a relationship, not to change each other, not to manipulate or control or just get some different action. If I can just express the feelings. I found that was a good relief. Like I said, even if the behavior didn't change or the action wasn't any different,
right.
I felt different.
Right.
I felt different.
Along the same vein, but different as well. Having grown up with the experience that you grew up with your parents, that we don't need to necessarily go on the podcast per se, but knowing a little bit of your background, then you said like coming out at 23, not feeling safe where you grew up. I remember you also saying like just being around other heterosexual men.
Yeah.
Coming into my men's meetings.
Yeah.
You've gone on one of my men's retreats. All those things. Have you seen any of your own personal growth? I mean, I've seen it, but do you see and recognize some of the personal growth that you've made in those areas of feeling safer around men? And tell me a little bit more about how you've experienced that yourself.
Yeah, that too goes back to that honesty and that authenticity that in those retreats, Mankind Project and your retreats were both about men being more vulnerable, men being more honest in a safe space where we could talk about men's things. That for me, it started to realize, oh, I'm not as different as I thought. Because again, with the sexuality being different, I had this idea in my head that straight men experience life this way and gay men experience it this way. Yeah. But coming together in those situations and sharing, everybody being able to share something they're insecure about, or everybody sharing their sexuality and what they are comfortable with or not, or what their insecurities, their shame. Then I started to feel that connection with them too, and say, and then I could be honest too and say, I'm really scared to say this. I do like men. I am attracted, and I'm scared to death. I feel like that turns them off, or I feel like it makes me a predator, or whatever. But then to get the feedback, then to get the honest, to break that story in my head that, not really a big, actually, I think it's kind of cool you're attracted to me.
Or this guy saying, I'm attracted to women, but I'm scared of them too.
Yeah. Yes, I've had that happen too, right? I'm afraid to go approach them.
Totally, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. I'm just like, what do you mean? But that's what you're supposed to do. I'm the one that's being different. And so it just helped bring down the differences, the realization that
broke up your story
more common. Yeah, for sure.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, it was challenging. Yeah, it was challenging that story in my head. And then, finding the connections, like you. There's another man that we met from the Mankind Project. We still do monthly phone calls, and this is, 2 years later?
Cool.
And it's one of the most intimate, if you will, vulnerable, honest relationship that is so cool, because we both say, wow, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy our conversations. Because it's beneficial for both sides. Yeah. So.
Well, having relationships with straight men like myself, but others, where you can have a great, open, intimate, platonic relationship. Yeah. Where there's just total trust. I think it's really powerful. Yeah. Different, and I experienced that for the first time in Mankind Project too. Just men holding space for other men. I've never experienced that, not to that extent. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And so something that finally felt safe about it, because like I said, the experience growing up, even though they didn't know I was gay, I still would be bullied. I still would be called names. So straight guys were not, or at least what I knew to be straight, were not safe. They were dangerous. They would hurt me, words or actions or whatever. So to find that there is a safe space to connect at an adult level now has been great. Has been absolutely great to challenge those stories.
Remember that time on my adventure when I said, "Oh, look at that eagle."
Yes, that was so cool, Johnny. I gotta say, that was like the first
You
time.
laughed so good.
Suddenly, I felt like I was actually included. Yeah, because you just came up from behind me and tackled. We were in the snow and just tackled me into the snow, and it was such a surprise. I never would have imagined. But then, second of all, almost instantly, I recognized, oh my gosh, I feel like one of the guys, like somebody wants to play in a playful way.
Yeah.
And belong, and like, oh, this is fun.
But the only reason why I did that to you is because originally you were frolicking down the hill.
That was so fun. That's right. I was.
Which was I was just laughing at that because I could tell again, the little boy was just having so much fun.
Yeah.
Because we were in like waist deep snow.
Powder, and it was just so light and fluffy, and
we were out there in the mountains, like up above tree line almost about, and we were building a like a winter emergency shelter.
Snow, yeah.
Because we had this survival specialist with us, and so at one point, guys were building it, and you and I were standing next to each other, and I don't know what. I do that stuff sometimes. I just randomly, I think I just looked at you and I was like, my little boy was like, oh, look, there's an eagle. And you're like, what? And I just swept your legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which made you laugh. I'm grateful that you didn't get angry or something like that. But
yeah. It was such a different experience because actually, honestly, growing up, somewhere grade school, I actually had a similar experience where I was on top of a dirt pile on the playground at school. And just looking around, and all of a sudden from behind me, somebody came up and smacked me and knocked me off. And there was nothing loving about that. That again was totally, I still have no idea who it was, but that was like a trauma thing. That was like, what happened? Oh my gosh, somebody just hurt me.
Yeah. And
so it was so cool to have a very similar experience, but from such a different place. It was such a different energy and playfulness, not a mean-spirited. So that was cool actually that it didn't trigger that old response. It actually was, no, this is a whole different life. This is a whole different situation. Yeah. This is fun. This
if
wasn't
you
playful.
Start crying or something like that. It triggered your trauma from playing King of the Hill or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That bastard.
No, that was fun. That was a great experience.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, what do you feel like what's the next, in just the next 90 days, what does that look like for you in terms of what you're facing, in terms of courageously and your own human evolution to even business? What are those things? It doesn't have to be all those things, but what are those things that you're scared of, but you're most excited to push into in just the next 90 days?
I would say it's the continuous revealing of what's next. Each day there's something a little bit different. To see where this path does lead me, to see where this road that I'm on actually ends up for me, because each day there are new things, there's new awarenesses that I never would have expected before, and then to keep just building the practice, to keep building the coaching clients and working with more people. That's exciting to me too. Once I'm in there doing the work, and once I'm in there interacting and helping, supporting somebody else, that's really, really exciting. Then there's that fulfillment piece, which then propels me to keep going to the next step. It's working with clients, keeping doing my own work of my, when the stuff bubbles up, when the anxiety mornings or the fearful mornings come up, how are we going to handle it this time? What's another angle to take? How can I accept this? How can I find that more love and compassion for myself, so then I can continue to offer it to the others and help them grow in whatever they want to do. That's fun too, is to see what someone else's passion is that lights them up, just like what my passion is that lights me up. It's seeing the growth in the others is really, really exciting.
That's definitely the fulfillment.
The parallel, my own personal growth. What do I keep? What's next for me, and then what's next for the rest of my people in my life. So.
What just popped in my mind too was this vision of I know how much you just absolutely love and adore getting outside, getting into mountains, hiking, being in nature, and it would be cool to infuse that level of enjoyment and happiness and fulfillment in your day-to-day work when you're not up there.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be a cool thing to kind of aim for, because you're like, you just said something to the effect of like, to see where this road leads, right? But this road of life, if you will, you know, you could go up to the mountains anytime you want at this point.
True.
You know, and it immediately changes your state and you're happy. The idea is like, how do we, rather than, you know, knowing and stepping into going to the mountains, or I'm going to go make my mountain trip, and then allowing that to kind of put us in this mood, right? But to actually wake up every single day, I think is the challenge. Wake up every single day, even if we're not feeling it, and somehow shift into that place of just love and gratitude and joy for what we're doing, flow. Yeah. And then mountains and conversations with people and all the wonderful things that life offers could just be icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, totally. I relate to that. It's what I also discovered in these last few months is it's when I feel safe, like in the mountains, for whatever reason, that does just feel like a home place, a safe place. I find there's such curiosity. I want to go here and I want to explore that new mountain and that new trail, someplace I've never been, right? It's all brand new. That's brand new too.
That's right.
But because I feel safe, I feel connected to that inner guidance, then I'm all for it. Yeah. So that's the next steps too, is to find more of that safety and security in my everyday life, that when I wake up in the morning, I also feel safe enough to, what do I want to create today? Right. How do I want to work on the website or do some other workshop or get that creativity flowing from the place of safety to be able to explore and to feel like exploring.
I think that's absolutely, I think you're right. I think we talked about this the other day, which is like, I think that's the next step, is finding that sense of, because that sense of security and safety and comfort. Because I remember so many times I'm like, man, if I could just have my bills paid, you know, and I was thinking about it yesterday. I'm like, man, the life I'm living right now, I would have given my left arm for 10 years ago. And yet still there's plenty of times I'm like, man, like it's not that it's never enough. I definitely love where I'm at, but it's like the balance between, okay, I have the safety and security and comfort of certain things in life, but then that allows the safe place to land so that you can really take risks into learning, growing, taking risks in business, whatever, relationships, while still feeling like you're not gonna,
feeling safe to take the risk. I really resonate with that. It's finding a place and a situation where I'm safe enough to take the risk. I have the image of a little child learning to explore his world, his or her world, but still, as long as there's mom or dad right there, then I'll go explore a little bit, and I'm still safe. So then I'll go explore some more. Yeah. So it's bringing that analogy to life.
I think about it in terms of an intimate relationship. Like that relationship is going to be, you know, the growth and the fulfillment of that relationship with your spouse or your partner is probably going to be proportional to the level of safety that you feel. Yeah. You know, and if you don't feel very safe in them, with them or in the relationship, then you're not going to feel. But man, if you know that place in your relationship is that soft place to land, and you can take risk and knowing that you can always come back to that person and feel seen and heard and comforted, and then building each other up, and then off you go into your interdependent lives to do your work. Like that's
pretty awesome.
The cool thing, you know. So I think that's the idea, is like you find that certainty of your health. Right? It's the same principle, so that you can then go climb mountains. Because if you're really overweight, you would be petrified about going up in the mountains, because what if I roll my ankle? And that could still happen to us, right? But if you're 100 pounds overweight, you'd be like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to survive. Like there'd just be so much more risk in doing that. Yeah. You create that foundation of security. I'm safe and I feel secure in my health, in my financial health, in my relational health. It's interesting that you have to have that certainty and security, but then you also have that, you know, kind of not conflicting, but the opposing need of uncertainty, desire to grow and adventure and excitement and uncertainty,
the risk part of it,
right? But I think coming out of a job, you know, you're in a place of like massive uncertainty, you know, and I think that's where it takes. And if you're listening to this and you're either thinking about taking the leap, right, or you have just done it, I think that the key, I think that's why the practice of gratitude is so good, because it helps you remind you of like, man, you got a nice shirt on, you got water coming out the top, you have electricity. Like we're in the greatest world in the country, in the
Yeah.
greatest country in the world, let's say. It's
Yeah.
debatable, who knows, but we're in an amazing place. There's so much to be grateful for, and from that place you can have certainty and
Yeah.
comfort, and then you can actually keep growing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Keep taking the steps, and yeah, exactly. And bring it back to the honesty part. The way you build that safe space with the partner is through that more vulnerability.
Yeah.
So we got to go through those honest conversations, the scary conversations. But the reward on the other side, I mean, I don't know if that's true for you, but for me, what's on the other side of those
Always.
conversations is that safety. So it is so worth it after the storm,
Yeah.
after the shit.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Tell me a little bit more about, just in wrapping this up, about your coaching business.
Okay.
What are some of your, whether it be programs or offerings, or who are you looking at really potentially working with if you could ideally choose? If you even want to answer that question.
Yeah.
Or what does that look like? If anyone's resonating with you, how they even go about contacting you, or what does that all look like?
Yeah, you can go to my website, findyourfrequencycoaching.com. Contact me there, send me a note. I do 30-minute free consultations where you can just sit and talk to see if we're on a similar match there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the working with the person. I like the one-on-one work, to ask the questions, to find that frequency inside of you, that smaller voice that we've talked about, and then to build the trust of that, just like we're talking about being secure in a relationship, in our home life, in our apartment, or wherever. That becomes a source of trust also when I can start to trust that voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, the population. I'd love to work with other gay men, because I obviously have that in common. But I've also had good experiences. I've had clients that are female that have also said he gave me new ideas and was a safe space. So I really enjoy working with anybody who resonates with the message of there's something in there. I think it's there, but how do I trust this? Or how do I figure out what this guidance is leading me? And that's where I come in to help. Not only ask the questions, but then support and encourage, because I've been there before.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Awesome. So findyourfrequencycoaching.com.
Yeah.
Awesome.